I went to Dreamstate this past weekend at the Queen Mary in Long Beach, and I gotta be honest, I was really excited for this Trance Festival. It was my first time going, and I gotta be blunt and very honest and transparent right in the beginning of this video that my experience was a bit mixed.
Oh, hi, Mark.
What's up, Freccero fam? Welcome back to my channel. I'd like to experience everything that life has to offer. As most of you know, I go to a lot of music festivals. I've been to a lot of events like Lightning in a Bottle, Ultra, EDC, and a lot more. And this was my first time this past weekend going to Dreamstate. And I feel a bit mixed about it. I'm just gonna say it right in the beginning of this video because for me, I grew up listening to trance. As a fun side fact, the first ever electronic music song that I loved was Let the Beat Control Your Body by 2 Unlimited. Huge throwback. They also made Twilight Zone. If you know, you know. And then the first ever artist that I really loved was Infected Mushroom, as they make mostly psytrance. From then, I then also played DDR for years. I was obsessed with DDR, and as you can imagine, DDR does have a lot of more like 90s trance, techno, even acid style music. And I'm a huge fan of trance. And when it came to Dreamstate, I wasn't too sure what to expect because on one end, I hate to be blunt, I've started to shy away from Insomniac Festivals. And I'll talk about why a little bit later in this video, but when it came to Dreamstate, a big thing that I heard from a lot of people is they're like, hey, this is a trance festival. I feel like the trance, especially like old school trance crowd and fam and everything, is a very intimate, loving community with great energy. And that's what I was expecting for Dreamstate. And for this video, I do kind of want to almost do a timeline of what my night was like, because it only went on Saturday night. It was a 2-day festival, only went on Saturday night, especially to see Tiesto. We'll talk about his set. His set was awesome. We'll talk about that though. But I want to talk about the timeline of events, because going to the Queen Mary, even that alone, really interesting. So like I said, Dreamstate, in case you don't know, is in Long Beach, and it's at the Queen Mary ship. I've already done a video about the Queen Mary years ago. For my dedicated subscribers, you might remember how it was almost like a haunted kind of experience going through these mazes and everything. It was a lot of fun. So it was my second time being back at the Queen Mary, and getting there was a nightmare. This is the first time I've done like a festival or like a rave at the Queen Mary, and it was an experience. I initially parked in Long Beach, and getting from, like, say, Long Beach proper to the ship, a lot of things are closed off. So be prepared. You might have to walk like a half hour. I happened to get one of those pedal cabs that was like 20 bucks. So they're kind of expensive, I'll be honest. Sometimes they charge like 40 bucks a person. So you can kind of negotiate with them. But after parking, had to then get a pedal cab to go all the way as close as I could to the bridge, then walked for maybe about 20 minutes. It wasn't a bad walk, and it was also a pretty beautiful walk. So we'll say that, just be prepared when it comes to the logistics of Long Beach and going to the Queen Mary. Typically, you can't just Uber directly there. You have to get as close as you can and then do about a 20 to 30 minute walk. I think if you're staying at the Queen Mary, you can easily just go right into the festival, but just something to keep in mind. Then got to Dreamstate. Now, when it came to Dreamstate, first off, it was a lot smaller than I expected. Again, maybe I'm used to picturing like things like Lightning in a Bottle, which is a huge camping festival, or EDC Las Vegas, which is massive in a speedway. Dreamstate was a lot smaller, which I didn't mind. I want to say that. And I did think the stage setups were incredibly well done. Like the stages and the production, when it comes to Insomniac, are always very, very good. The production, excellent. That being said, when it came to the traffic flow and just walking around, I felt it was way more congested than I expected. I mean, it was packed, and I don't mind a packed festival. I mean, that's part of a festival, but it was almost too packed to the point where it felt a little uncomfortable. And in addition, I gotta be honest, and this is gonna be a very recurring theme about this video, walking around, not a fan of the crowd at all. That kind of threw me off. I gotta be honest, and you know, I'll touch upon this a bit throughout this video, but I feel like the crowds of Insomniac festivals are probably one of the biggest or worst turnoffs about Insomniac events. And I'm not trying to blame Insomniac here for that. Of course, they can't control if the crowd's gonna be a good vibe or bad vibe. But I think especially for this festival, I remember being really excited for Dreamstate because a lot of people told me like, hey, Insomniac festivals, the crowd's usually not the best. I think the crowd, in my opinion, has gotten worse and worse. It's kind of like the most cliche ravers that are sometimes not the best vibing people. Hate to say it, like can be very, very rude and a lot more. But Dreamstate is different, and that's what I was told. But this time, wasn't really the best vibing crowd. And I hate to say that because I went with people who've been to Dreamstate. And they're like, hey, Mark, I hate to say it. I've gone to Dreamstate for years. This year, though, to timestamp it, it's 2025 is when I went. This year in 2025, the crowd was just not it. It felt like a very different energy compared to the loving, hate to use this word, like huggy, vibey, typical energy of Dreamstate. This is a very, very different energy, very different ambiance in the past few years. And I will say this, maybe for me, I've gotten a lot more used to more smaller festivals like Same But Different or Lightning in a Bottle. Although Lightning in a Bottle is becoming pretty big, but Same But Different is one of my favorite festivals, period. But the crowd, I hate to say it, was very, very rude. That being said, I did meet a lot of awesome people, a lot of good vibing people, but the energy of the whole crowd felt very, if I had to use this word, mainstream. And I know, right now, maybe I'm sounding like one of those like haters being like, oh, back in my day, raves were better. I'm not saying that. I'm gonna be honest, I think EDM, or the electronic music community, is the best it's ever been. I know maybe some OG ravers might disagree with me on that, but I started listening to electronic music in the 90s. I think that, yes, it's gone through a lot of waves. There's some good things about the popularity. There's some bad things. But I think overall, and I genuinely mean this, we're living, I think, in the best time for EDM. The festivals, the crowds, everything that's going on. And I think the bigger that something gets, and this is inevitable in anything, the bigger something gets, the more negative people join it, but also the more positive people join it. So this is true for anything, right? I think it's never been a better time for EDM and electronic music right now. So I do want to say that. The crowd just was not it. I was expecting a very trance-like crowd. And maybe if I went to Beyond Wonderland, like say this was Beyond Wonderland, or Nocturnal Wonderland, or EDC, or another event, maybe my viewpoint would be a bit different, because I'm like, oh, it's another Insomniac event. If the crowd's a bit rude, that's part of it. Hate to say it. But with Dreamstate, I thought Dreamstate was going to be different. The second thing, which I thought was really interesting, when walking around, didn't really hear a lot of trance. That kind of threw me off. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this supposed to be like trance-like festival? I feel like I mostly heard like more big room stuff, actually, which kind of surprised me. I even heard some trap, and I want to say this, I'm not hating. I love literally every style of EDM. I can go from, like, say, a Hardwell set to a Tipper set to then, like, say, a AC Slater set to then a Martin Garrix set, and love all of them. I love all styles of EDM, but that did kind of throw me off. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm here to hear mostly trance, maybe even some throwback trance, but didn't really. If anything, I think when it came to the song selections, when walking around, hearing the stages and everything, maybe I thought only a third of the songs that were played were actually what I consider trance. And it's not like I had to hear some purest, true, OG trance, all that kind of stuff, but I wanted to hear a good amount of just trance in general. Didn't really hear that much. Like, I was expecting more of like a state of trance kind of vibes when going to Dreamstate, if that makes sense, but didn't really get that. With that being said, though, I luckily was in VIP, and some things were kind of standard when it came to festivals. Like, the food was super overpriced, the drinks were super overpriced, right? Kind of what you expect at a typical festival when it comes to getting amenities. The bathrooms, actually decently clean. So in terms of some of the festival logistics, kind of what you would expect. And then, which I have to talk about in this video, Tiesto set. I'm going to be blunt, that was like 90, maybe 95% of the reason why I went. You know, I was super excited for a set. And I got to say, he crushed it. Ending on Adagio for strings and everything. What like a legendary way to close it out. Like, his set was excellent. I mean, his mixing was flawless. I mean, he's doing main stages almost every day of his life, right? So, of course, he is not only the GOAT and the king, really, you know, when it comes to how much he popularized EDM. He was the first big DJ to do big shows and festivals. And I remember learning in a documentary that him and his team didn't tell anybody they wanted to have a venue dedicated for EDM because people would laugh at them, be like, wait a minute, you're telling me people are going to go to a venue and as opposed to seeing a rock concert, they're going to see a DJ? Never going to happen. And Tiesto was really the first DJ to sell out venues and shows and the OG king, but also, still now, old school versus new school, still new school, still an insanely crazy good DJ. I mean, how old is he? He's almost like, I think 60, and he's still crushing the decks. And his set was kind of, I'll be honest, I think everything you wanted in terms of a very high vibing set, insane song selection, really, really good mixing, flawless mixing, everything you'd want. You could tell, I think, especially when seeing him DJ, you could tell he was so happy to like kind of go back to his roots and everything. And that kind of made the whole vibe and experience. And again, of course, finishing off with Adagio for strings, his like main trance song, could not have been better. And so overall, I gotta say this. I had a good time going to Dreamstate, and I'm very happy I went, especially or 90% because of Tiesto's set. I will also say this, I went with a really good group. And so when it came to being all together, and also, I will say this when it comes to Dreamstate, VIP is worth the upcharge. I feel like for some festivals, it's not really worth it. When it came to Dreamstate, especially this time, I think that the upcharge for VIP was well worth it above GA. But it came to the crowd and the vibes and the energy, which is something I was really, really going for. And also, looking to hear a lot of trance, I feel like it didn't really do it for me. And I'm not trying to hate on Insomniac or Dreamstate or anything, but I always like to be honest and transparent. Although I had a good time, and I'm really glad I went to Dreamstate and had a phenomenal time with friends. Tiesto set, I also saw Paul Oakenfold set, he had a great set. Although I had a good time in that realm, with the crowd just not being a good vibe, and also the fact that I actually didn't hear that much trance, which in some ways I like a variety of EDM, but I think in this case, I'm going to Dreamstate to particularly hear trance, because it's typically a trance festival. I don't know if Dreamstate is something I would ever go to ever again.